to the 2-star books of 2024. So these were not as bad as yesterday's. The 1 stars are truly the worst, but these aren't that great either. It's just like, you gotta reserve the 1 stars for like the truly bad, and these are like the next step up. They're still pretty bad, but for different reasons usually. And so we've got a bit more to this list. We have 20 instead of 6, so it'll be a longer video. So let's jump in. The first one we're going to talk about is Spells for a Magical Year, 100 Rituals and Enchantments for Prosperity, Power, and Fortune by Sarah Bartlett. So this book is set up so that it goes month by month, giving you a variety of different spell ideas, obviously being 100 spells. That's the majority of the book. There's also a new and a full moon option for each month as well, and then of course the various festivals and sacred days throughout the year. In theory, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? You're like, wow, what could be, why is it a 2-star? It was just awful. Consent, why would that matter? Just throw that right out the window. Research was like iffy at best. Like, the concept of this book was awesome. The execution of it was terrible. So just, again, I'm not gonna, because we have a lot more to get through today, I'm not gonna go through a whole lot of the examples, but I mean, you've got like, get my ex back, and like a new moon spell to ignite passion in someone's heart. Again, a lot of like consent things that it's like, what are you doing? And like some of the things, it was like to use the rune for hail to bring about, like, to sell your ideas to activate the spell. And it's like, so the rune of like hardships and hail. And like also it later says that like Onsus and Lagus, whatever, you know what? People have already always argued that I suck at pronouncing rune names, so just roll with it. But they were the gods of old, and it's like, that's runes, not gods. Like, it was just a hot mess express of a book. Just don't do it. This next one, I'm still icked from this book. So, Queer Magic, LGBT plus spirituality and culture from around the world, by Tomas Prower. So the premise of this book was to be a historical analysis of some of the LGBT throughout the world, but this book really needs to just have a gigantic label on the front of the cover of trigger warning. And I'm not much of a trigger warning kind of a person. There are some books that I think it should be there, and sometimes I think they overdo it. But if you're gonna underdo it or overdo it, I'd rather you overdo it than underdo it, because this is like extremely graphic and it's like kind of horrific to read through, and it just is awful. So it includes very descriptive hate crimes, rape, violence, and there was one that was a particularly violent mutilation, and he goes into a lot of detail that the reader doesn't need, especially for this supposed to be about queer magic. The other thing with this book is that it really is not actually for all of those letters. It's for one, and it is for gay men. There are just very casual mentions of everyone else, and that's iffy. It's really the only other main letters. You're not going to find a lot for the others. It's just, and again, it's really just brief of like, oh yeah, and I guess like there's lesbians, and I guess there's like bi people, and I guess there's like trans people. But it's really, really just for gay men. And it really just focuses on that experience as well. And it doesn't really go into a lot of other perspectives. It's really just the gay man experience. And again, it's obviously going to be a cis gay man. But it's really the fact that the content is so graphic in this book that just don't do it. It needed a really big trigger warning, because there isn't one, and there should have been. The next one is The Modern Witchcraft Guide to the Wheel of the Year, From Samhain to Yule, Your Guide to the Wiccan Holidays by Judy and Nock. So this is a very brief overview of the Wheel of the Year, and it has a very big emphasis on constellations, which is an interesting take. So I read this as part of my own researchings for my book. Like, I was trying to gather a lot throughout this year of books that I was going to be working on, and this was one of them, and it just wasn't great at all. Like, again, there's a lot of emphasis on like the constellations, and like, I don't trust the author. I don't trust the information because it's very not traditional. Like the Yule section, I was really questioning a lot of the research, and like it felt like the information for the Norse, because like when you think about Yule, the name itself is Norse. It's like this book, she focused for like the Greek and like just a toss out to a couple others, but really it was about the Greeks. And their winter holiday was not called Yule. That was the Norse one called Yule, except it's with like a J, and I think it had a like asterisk or something. It had one of the funky letters that we don't use in English. But yeah, it almost felt intentionally lacking for the Yule section for the Norse, and again using the name Yule. And it's like, they're like, why? I get why, because a lot of authors just don't even go near the Norse because it's got a lot of baggage. But like other things, it was like the thing for Bridget that's like, I guess maybe a Bridget's cross, but it was spelled super weird, and I could not find anything on it outside of this book. And again, really, the majority of this book, I just was constantly questioning the research. Also, by the time I got to the end, again, it was very telling that there were no references included. There was no sources. I have no idea where the author got her information. Next, we have got Weave the Liminal, Living Modern Traditional Witchcraft by Laura Tempest Zakroff. I don't know how to say that last name. Also, my cat has decided to be super needy, so if you hear her meowing in the background, she's fine. She's just demanding attention because I'm ignoring her to record a video, and she does not like that. So if you hear her bellowing, she's fine. So this book is kind of talking about her tradition, titled Modern Traditional Witchcraft, and it really dances the line between memoir and really just, it's mostly her experience rather than relating to the reader. Really, the main thing that I did not like about this book is she is not young. She's not exactly like ancient, but she's not young. And yet, her tone is so terrible. It just is constantly feeling like an angsty teenager who wants to write a book. And like a lot of authors, we have that phase when teenagers to write an angsty teen kind of a book. I mean, I tried to do that with a witchcraft book when I was a teenager, and I thankfully didn't do that. But like her word choice just screams teenager rather than like a matured adult. She's got a huge chip on her shoulder regarding Christianity, like to the point, I usually don't side very much with the Christians. They have a lot of issues, but even I was starting to be like, I think I'm on their team now, because like, what? This is just, it's bad. Like, I include it in the regular review, but I'll just toss this one in just so you can get a context of the verbiage. So this was from page 33. Spoiler alert, Jesus wasn't the first virgin born. Oh, it was divine intervention that made this extra special person because humans aren't special enough. Oh, a tainted woman couldn't possibly produce such a thing. It must be heavenly penis. Like, calm down. Holy shit. And then like a later one, she literally put parentheses, #truth. Just cringe to the highest of degrees. Then we have got Psychic Dreamer, Exploring the Connection Between Dreams and Intuition by Dr. Michael Lennox. I don't know, names. So the book talks what the title kind of suggests. It's themed dreams from other people, but like it doesn't really do much. Like you're just reading about what other people dream about. And at the end, it had like the absolute most basic of tips that like, honestly, I think if you Googled it, you would get better results. Like it just was not that helpful. So like only this book if you want to read about other people's dreams, which just doesn't feel like a very necessary book. Like, why do you want to read about random people's dreams? Just seems weird and just not that great. And it really did not fulfill the promise of the title of the book. This next one, I still remember hating this book. So, Empty Cauldrons, Navigating Depression Through Magic and Ritual by Terence B. Ward. This book kind of discusses depression through a variety of modern pagans, but it's not helpful. Like, the thing that they tell you is just like journaling is like God, basically. It's gonna fix everything. The author is also constantly pushing medication, which again, that works for some people, but like for me, I can't do that. And there's plenty of other people who cannot do that. And like, whether it's for medical reasons, financial reasons, just personal reasons, you can't always do that, and that just doesn't really help people. Like, this book just had nothing actually to help with the topic they're presenting, and it sucks. And it's like, this book is just like a giant interview, which I don't like those books personally. I find them really boring. It reminds me of like when you were like a kid and you were walking on a sidewalk and you can only fit 2 people and you're the third, so you're shoved either into the grass, into the road, or behind, and like people just ignore you. That's how this book ends up feeling. It's like you're just like eavesdropping on a conversation, but it's not even like good gossip where you want to keep going. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm just not included in the conversation. That's fine. And it's the most basic beginner steps to handling depression, which really isn't that helpful. Our next one, I really have not had very much luck with this author. So, Earth Magic. Your complete guide to natural spells, potions, plants, herbs, witchcraft, and more by Marie D. Jones. This book, it goes over a lot of various beliefs, really mostly Wiccan, and gives some information on the stuff, you know, herbs, stones, essential oils, basic tools, so on. Honestly, the book was just so unbelievably boring. Like, there's just certain books that you arrange the words in a way that is so boring, it's so hard to get through, and this was one of those. Also, it's definitely Wicca based, which not everyone really loves, and like, really just the writing itself, it just ended up reading like a college, like not even a college, a high school essay. It also really doesn't go very deep into any of the things and just is constantly like very beginner level, and of course there's like no conclusion. It was rough to get through. Oh, this is another one that I absolutely hated. The Art of Flaneuring. I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that word. But even my Google Doc says the word is spelled wrong, and I quadruple checked to make sure I spelled it correctly. It's a weird word. But it is How to Wander with Intention and Discover a Better Life by Erika Owen. So this book is basically mindfully walk, and that's it. That's the book. The writing style was pretty terrible for me. It was so casual and trying to be so trendy. It read more like a blog post or like a magazine article, and not like a serious magazine either, like a very casual kind of thing. Also, the author had like such obvious bias for certain things and they couldn't get over it. They kept constantly mentioning it. It's like, oh my god, I get it, let's move on, let's do something else. And she never could, and really it was just like, I don't know why we needed an entire book to tell you to be mindful when you're walking. Like, pay attention to your surroundings and like focus on the in the now. That's it. You could just make it an Instagram post and get the same information out. It didn't need to be a book. It just really didn't do anything. And again, if it seems like I'm going through these kind of quickly, I am. The full reviews are always linked below. This is just like a brief recap of all of the books. And if there's one that you're like, I would like to know more, you can find it at the blog post linked in the description. The next one is The Crystal Fix, Healing Crystals for the Modern Home by Juliette Thornbury, I'm guessing, maybe. So this one goes over a variety of crystals that you can utilize in your life with an emphasis around your home. This book was just like odd. The crystals really weren't organized very well. It just seemed very, very random. Like, they're not alphabetized. Like, it felt very randomly put together. And of course, there's no conclusion, no bibliography, there's no nothing. So it was like a couple kind of interesting things, but really not worth all of the other issues with this book. Next, we have got Celtic Tree Astrology by Virginia Loh-Hagan. I don't know, I'm mispronouncing names, I'm sure. So this is a kid's book, which I did not anticipate because, again, I've actually had it a few times of books that I think I might have talked about them a little bit on like Instagram, but I've accidentally picked up a few kids books throughout the year and This was, I think, the first one that was like truly like a kid's picture book that I'm like, I haven't picked up one of these in so freaking long. Oh my god. Like it's probably been a decade or more since I grabbed a kid's book at least. And yeah, this is like, it's a kid's book that introduces the concept of the Celtic tree astrology. So I must say that, like, again, I hadn't read like really a lot of kids books at this point. Like obviously I did when I was a kid, but it's been so long. And like I remember reading kids books with like my niece when she was little, but it's been a long time. Like she's a teenager now, so it's been a while. And this book, it really didn't explain a lot. And like the way it was organized wasn't my favorite. And so like I didn't know at this point if it was really a good like kids book or if it was like maybe I'm just too old to appreciate it. But no, actually it just sucked. Like because I have been reading a lot of books that are not witchy related. I've just been looking into like surrogacy versus adoption and things. And so I found some books thinking they were going to be like novels length, you know, and they were not. They were a kid's book. And they describe things in so much detail that it's like, wow, I didn't learn some of this till way later in life. And so this book, I'm like, why couldn't, if you can explain how pretty much every single type of family can exist, because again, there's one of like, basically when your kid asks where babies come from, there's a book that tells you in so much detail. And some of these parents, you're like, you need to go touch grass, bro. This is a fantastic book to answer all of the questions. And it shows like all of the different options, like if you're trans, if you just suffer from infertility, if you're in a same-sex couple, like all of the things. And so it goes into a lot of details. This book, tree astrology, nothing. And so it's like, I don't know the age range for either of these. And like, I don't have kids, so I can't be like, oh, well, our kid's at this age yet. Because I gotta make so much money to get them first. But like, neither of these felt particularly helpful for telling you the age to hand it to. But this book, it didn't offer any information really. And for like a kid's book, I feel like an adult should be able to read through it and get like a decent chunk of like basic information, and it just really wasn't there. Continuing along, this is one that I talked about on Patreon, and oh, this one was rough. So, The Complex PTSD Coping Skills Workbook, an evidence-based approach to manage fear and anger, build confidence, and reclaim your identity by Tamara, McClintock, Greenberg. Names, I know I'm butchering them. So this is one, actually, I totally forgot about it. It technically is a DNF. See, I talked about this yesterday. I need to create a DNF list because it's like, sometimes I count it because it's like, God, I read like a lot of this book, but I didn't finish it. And so DNF needs its own category, but apparently I counted it in my 2 stars. So here we are. But this was the most basic journal prompts with some explanation for you to try and figure out. A lot of it was just saying how like you physically feel the emotion and then figure out how you could do better next time. And there's really like no clues of what to do except write about it, which is not very helpful. Because like it's very easy to intellectualize your feelings and your emotions, but like therapy usually goes a little deeper than that. And like CPTSD is super complex. And this book is like, it's like a Google thing of like, just go explore, just feel your feelings, and just like write about it. And so yeah, I DNF'd it about halfway through because it's just literally not helpful at all. So like if you haven't tried journaling, this is your book. Then we have got The Hedgewitch's Little Book of Spells, Charms, and Brews by Tudorbeth. So this is a collection of spells, obviously, that cover the basic areas of life such as health, love, money, and protection. Now, the thing with these spells is that they're super basic and they come across kind of whiny when you're doing them. Like you're just constantly pleading and it feels like you're like a toddler whining at the universe. And of course, no surprise to anybody, consent, why would we have that? That it's only there when it's convenient. And really, the information is just super basic. There are much better spell books available. Anything from Deborah Blake, 1,000 times better than this. My Patreon peeps had the unfortunate reality that I tried to read some other books this year. I tried to venture into some like kind of similar-ish thing. A lot of witches tend to read psychology books. So I tried to do them and they all really didn't work out. They all kind of sucked. So here we are. Change your schedule, change your life. How to harness the power of clock genes to lose weight, optimize your workout, and finally get a good night's sleep by a doctor. I don't know how to say his name. So this is a weight loss book, and it only works if you, honestly, like if you are the rich stay-at-home housewife, because you cannot work a traditional job, and you have to have a very forgiving schedule. And so, like, pretty much anytime a weight loss book starts talking about detoxing and cleansing and fasting, it should be a red flag. These are not actually helpful. The most you really want to do is like calorie deficit, because if you inhale less calories than you are burning, naturally you're going to lose weight. But also you need to be very mindful of like the calories you're intaking. But anytime somebody's like, you need to cleanse, you need to detox, you have organs that do that. And a doctor should know that. Like, you should really know that. And like, maybe his weird system will work, but it's so unrealistic to most people. Like, I thought about a lot of people in our lives, and none of them would be able to do this. And like, I could probably finagle it, but also like, why? And so if you're wanting to find like a good source for learning nutrition, I have loved Liam on TikTok, which I know theoretically might be going away next month, so he might be other places. But also a natural vegan. I know people get scared by the name vegan, but nutrition, advice from her, she does a lot of research. And also she doesn't always push veganism. Like, there are people who she has argued should not be vegan, and she's very balanced. But like, when I need health information, I go to her videos, and I would never go to this dude, because like his other book is so scammy that you're just like, oh god. And it's called The Hot Belly Diet, from a doctor. Hard pass. Next, we have got Tending to the Sacred, Rituals to Connect with Earth, Spirit, and Self by Ashley River Brandt. So this book talks about various like more new age concepts surrounding the self, healing, the earth, and so on. Really, this book is very like pseudoscience kind of vibes, and the author has lived a fairly privileged life. Nothing in this book is really like groundbreaking, and honestly the information's pretty basic, and like it's really just like the most introduction level of mindfulness that like anything really. I put in my notes that it's like any generic counseling pamphlet, but it's like, honestly, even a quick Google search probably would give you the exact same results. Like, it is really beginner level. And just some of her words were just like not great, and some of the things were just no. And like some of the things I personally get like miffed about, because it's like, we have forgotten that the remedy for any ailment can be found within the earth. And it's like, well, duh, we're not going to Mars, are we? Like, of course it's coming from here. What are you talking about? And like, she encourages you to be Dom. Our bodies don't get the vitamin D and sun kisses as much as we should. We are actually taught to fear the sun in our modern culture, and lather our skin with chemicals to prevent our skin from absorbing the sun's naturally healing energy. No, that is pseudoscience. And also, you will get cancer. The planet and all of the parts of the universe are not here to serve humans. It does its own thing. Sometimes it's good for us, and sometimes it's bad for us. Direct sunlight is good for the brain, bad for the skin. So like, mentally, sunshine, fantastic. Put on sunblock. It's there for a reason, and it's not gonna stop the sun from naturally healing you. You can still get vitamin D, and also you should just be supplementing most of the time anyways. Most of us aren't hitting any of our nutritional needs very easily anyways. Like, you really should be taking like a multivitamin, and like have your levels checked with a doctor, and like check out your nutrition and make sure you're actually getting the stuff you need. Yeah, this book, it was just a lot of woo-woo. You don't need any training in order to be your own healer, which is like, yeah. But then you also get like the dark ages where it's like, if you hang a worm around your neck, it will solve your sore throat. That doesn't fix it. Or bloodletting, you know, like you should actually be trained. The New Mindful Home and How to Make It Yours by Joanna, maybe? Thornhill? So this is a collection, okay, I'll read my note exactly. This is a collection of short, let's be honest, It's an Instagram caption slightly extended. It focuses on trendy topics when it comes to anything related to quote-unquote new age. This book, it literally felt like you were reading through an Instagram account. Like, the pages were just awful. The design wasn't that great. The content was so beyond simplistic, and it was super short, and like, the pictures are just taking up so much space. There's not really that much text. The text is hard to see, and like, I have pretty good vision, especially up close. And so like, I can't imagine how it would be for people who struggle up close. And it doesn't explain anything, and it definitely just is trendy spirituality. This is one that I had hoped to really like, and I really didn't. Aspecting the Goddess, Drawing Down the Divine Feminine by Jane Meredith. I loved her book, Journey to the Dark Goddess. So good. This one, no. So this one goes over a variety of goddesses through like more of a memoir-like telling. And it goes through a myths while it's relating to herself. And like, there's a couple ritual suggestions, but really it's just a memoir. Like, I really wanted more to this book, and it just wasn't there. I wanted it to have, you know, the rituals to do and to really feel like I could go and like use this book as like a guidebook. And it was really just more of a memoir. And of course, why would we not? We've got another Norse one that they're so hard to find good ones. So, Beyond the North Wind, The Fall and Rise of the Mystic North by Christopher McIntosh. So, this is a historical analysis of the Norse history, bringing it up to the present, but there's a weird emphasis on Russia. I don't know why. I mean, I guess like they're kind of close, but like, no. So first of all, the writing in this is uberly boring. And so like, you've got to be prepared that you're like reading a textbook. Like, your brain is going to want to just check out and find anything else that's informative and fun, literally anywhere except the pages, because this book is so boring. He also conveniently skirts around the AFA and all of the problems with them. I've talked about it quite a bit. If you don't know, you can find it. But yeah, they're problematic, and just like, whenever you just skirt around it, it's like, why are we skirting around it? Why aren't we talking about it? It's really easy to just be like, no. But we don't do that. And really, my note was like, this is so dry, you need a pot of coffee nearby to get through it. Next, we have got Mountain Magic, Explore the Secrets of Old-Time Witchcraft by Rebecca Beyer. I just talked about this not too long ago. It's still fresh on the brain, because I remember going on my rant about mountain. Because, you know, Utah, we say mountain instead of mountain. Because that's like one of the very few times you can catch your own accent, because obviously everyone has an accent, but you don't notice it if it's close enough to your own till you go other places. You know, like, no one thinks they have an accent until you compare it with somebody else. But anyways, this book is really just on the Appalachian Mountains and the folklore there, and it just was, I don't know, I felt like the title was pretty misleading, and it was just really brief little historical things of folk magic and stuff. And honestly, I would just read Backwoods Witchcraft by Jake Richards instead, because that was a really good book. This was not. Once again, we have got a Caradwyn Greenleaf, Wiccan Teas and Brews, Recipes for Magical Drinks, Essences, and Tinctures. As the title suggests, it's a very brief overview of some tea recipes and spells for you to consider. So Greenleaf does this wonderful thing where she never cites any of her sources, so I don't know where she's getting her information. There are no health warnings, and honestly, her other books have made me lose so much faith in her ability to research that I don't trust her. And of course, I don't know where she's getting her information. It's probably just Google. And sometimes Google can be helpful, and sometimes it can be really unhelpful. And similar, this is one that I actually wrote down another of like, read this one instead, which was the Herbal Tea Magic for the Modern Witch by Elise or Elsie. Again, I read the name and then my brain just like short circuits, and I'm like, I don't know. Wild. Her book, so much better on the same topic. And then lastly, we have got Modern Magic, Stories, Rituals, and Spells for Contemporary Witches by Michelle T. So once again, we have got a memoir, various tales of hers kind of relating to whatever subject she's brought up. There's like a handful of rituals and spells, but really it's a memoir. And again, this is not a teenager, yet it is written as if it was a teenager who wrote it. And it's written in kind of a similar fashion to Grimoire Girls, but it's not as well written. That book, at least, was written by an adult. This reads like it was a teenager jumping from politics and just really terrible research, and it switches between like the spelling of like goddess with an S and goddess with an X, and like the writing is just awful. I gave the kind of long example in the review from page 39 of just the writing style, and I'll just read the last bit of it. It's like, yeah, right. Gabriel swings by Joseph's and is like, no, dude, for real. And then everything is chill. Seriously. This was like somebody, I'm guessing in her 40s, who wrote this. And it's like, I kind of want to send you back to school to learn words. Because slang works in certain context. If this was a fictional work, sure, because it gives your character a voice. But it doesn't work for nonfiction. And yeah, those are all of the 2-star books for this year. And tomorrow's will be a super duper long one because we've got the 3 stars. And that one is like a lot. I've got 62 books. Today we did 20. So the 3 stars are going to be a wild ride. Today's, they were pretty bad, but they weren't as bad as the 1 stars. Like, they had a tiny bit of redeeming quality that kept them away from the 1 star. Because again, I keep the 1 stars pretty hard to hit that point because I want it to mean something. So the 2 star is like the next level up of like, you didn't tell me to get thread off of a corpse because that's still the reigning option of for realies. But also, I mean, taking a bath with rust water and having glass explode in your house, you know, there's some pretty bad ones out there. But these are just like a slight step above that. They're still bad. I still wouldn't recommend them, but they're not like the absolute worst thing ever written. So anyways, that is going to be it for the 2-star books. I would love to hear what ones, if you've read any of these, which ones were your 2 stars from this year in the comments down below. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons. If you want to support me and get access to exclusive content, it's patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, bless be.